What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Book Binge on the King Crusoe YouTube channel. This week is, I believe, episode 32, where we are doing the reading wrap-up and TBR for September. So wrapping up August and going into September. Now, apologies for any potential background noise, stuff that kind of gets through, especially while I'm talking. My neighbor is actually mowing his lawn right now, which he started doing literally like a minute ago when I started recording to do my thumbnail and all of that. So, yeah, that's kind of inconvenient, but I just have to do this right now. Anyways, and just for you crazy lunatics, I did dress up for this video because for some reason you people seem to like it when I dress up. So, I guess I'm just going to torture myself and do it for you guys, even though I didn't really feel like it. So, without further ado, let's get into the wrap-up and start off with what I read in August. Now, this is a little bit cheating, but also not really, because I had to record my August or my July reading wrap-up and August TBR video a month ago. I had to do that like a full week before the end of the month due to getting wisdom teeth taken out and anticipating a long healing cycle that would make it difficult for me to record the video. So I had several days to be able to read, and I had planned to read The Picture of Dorian Gray over that last week before August actually started. I can say now that actually happened, so this, while technically not having been read in August, I will include here because I did read it indeed at the end of July like I had planned. So that was the start. I had a little bit more of a mixed reception on this than I was anticipating that I would. Not necessarily that I had like high hopes for it, but that a lot of people that I know really enjoyed it, so I was kind of confused when I didn't have as strong of a positive reaction to it. You can actually go ahead and read the review of this that I did on Goodreads, which is goodreads.com/King Crusoe, and then you can find it from there. If you want to hear my specific thoughts, I would recommend go checking that out because I'm not going to do an actual video review of this for some time. After I finished that, starting on the 1st of August, I was actually able to begin reading Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. I'm going to show both editions because, I'm flexing just because I can, and also because I actually read most of this book out of the UK edition as opposed to the US one, just because of the way that my shelves are. I actually have Queen of Mid-Ashes and Lesser Devil in the paperback on the very edge, and having this outside of its sleeve jacket just caused them to cause problems with the way that my shelf looked, so I preferred to read from this one. I'm a weirdo. You can judge me all you want. I rather enjoyed Empire of Silence. There was a couple weird things about it, but I really loved the rest of what was in it. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. I technically rated a 4.5. It was really good. I'm really happy with how it is, and I'm very excited to be able to continue on with that series. And additionally, I was actually not planning or supposed to be able to read this until September, but I started it early and ended up finishing it before September even started, that being The Lesser Devil by Christopher Rocchio, which is a novella in the Sun Eater universe following Hadrian, the main character of the main series, his younger brother. Now, yes, I'm flexing as well because I can, but also because I actually read out of both of these editions. I read out of this paperback at work and read out of this hardcover when I was at home. I really enjoyed The Lesser Devil. Actually caught me by surprise. Uh, I went in rather tentatively, not necessarily assuming that I wouldn't like it as much, but wondering if I would like it as much as Empire of Silence since it wasn't following Hadrian, and I really liked Hadrian as a protagonist, but I will say that this satisfied me a lot. It definitely didn't do as much as Empire of Silence did, which is predictable because Empire of Silence was like 580 pages and this was 170. Yeah, there's a big difference between that in terms of just general pacing and plot stuff. But what happened in this, I really enjoyed all of the character interactions and just again how human it all felt. So I was able to read this in August and really enjoyed what I got out of it. And then, actually, what I read before or tried to read before The Lesser Devil, I actually started, but put down for the moment. That being Tides of War by Stephen Pressfield, and this, in a way, kind of pains me to say because I was actually looking forward to this book since I'm so huge into, ancient history and especially Greek and Roman type of history. So to follow a tale like the Peloponnesian War and a character or a figure within that historically was something that I was looking forward to, but this book wasn't doing it for me. I got to, I can't remember what page it was, but this novel is split into 9 books. I read the first 2, and it was not doing anything for me. I really enjoyed chapter 5. I can still remember chapter 5. First few chapters I remember bits and pieces of, but all of the rest of the first, I believe, 9 chapters that I read did not do anything. Like, I don't remember what happened in any of those chapters, pretty much except for chapter 5. So that kind of says how forgettable it was for me. Plus, additionally, I did a sort of kind of review on this when I put it on pause on Goodreads, because people who know me know that I don't like DNF, and I tend to not to. I try not to, unless I'm like absolutely hating a book. Unless I'm hating it, I don't want to DNF. And I would say that was holding true for me up until the point that I just quit with this one. I don't have it permanently DNF'd at the moment. The thing was that I had just come off of a couple-week reading slump in the middle of Empire of Silence. That's why I didn't get that many books read in August. I read most of Empire of Silence and then had like a week and a half there where I didn't read anything. So when I came back from it and finished Empire of Silence in a couple days and started this, I could feel it doing stuff that was like leading me into going into another slump. And I was like, I don't have time to go into another slump at the moment, especially since I just came off of one. So I decided to put it down for now, hoping to maybe come back later. But I even picked this up a couple days ago to see, well, maybe I could try again, pick up where I left off, and I just was not feeling it. So it seems like it was a relatively poor option to try to start with for Pressfield, because the framing device of this is just so complex. Like I said, you can check out that sort of review that I did to get a little bit more info on that, but I have shelved this one for now, just saying it's a DNF, but I may come back to it in the future. We shall see. Instead, what happened was what I started at the end of August and will be finishing in September. This is to finish up what I read in August. I started, you can see a few bookmarks there for a reason, The Iliad by Homer. Now, this was something that I was really excited about for the same reason that I was excited about with this, the whole history, mythology, ancient Greek type of stuff. I'm happy to say that I'm much more into this than I was into Tides of War. I've read, at this point that I'm recording, I believe 4 of the 24 books out of this, right? Let me double check for you, sorry. Yeah, I've read 4 out of 24 books of the Iliad, and I have these other bookmarks in the back marking the synopses for the separate books, just in case I need to reference some stuff. If I didn't understand a certain section, I can go back and double check, as well as the glossary, because there's a lot of names and a lot of events and locations made in this book. But I'm really enjoying what I've read of this so far. Very happy about that. It's kind of like resurged me into like shooting forward with reading again after August was pretty slow on that front. And with that, let's talk about what my favorite read of August was. Now, again, I kind of can't really count this because I actually read it in July, not that it would be my favorite read anyway, but I can't count that. Other than The Picture of Dorian Gray, I only have Empire of Silence and The Lesser Devil to be able to include into the running of my favorite book of August. And actually, if I hadn't finished The Lesser Devil before the end of August, I would have only had Empire of Silence, so Empire of Silence would have been the default for my favorite read of the month. But actually, this was not my favorite. I would say that the highs of Empire of Silence are far above the highs of The Lesser Devil, but because of a couple of the weird pacing issues that I had with Empire of Silence, which you'll hear about in my review of that, which will come in a little over a month from now, The Lesser Devil was very consistent and had a lot of what made Empire of Silence really good, and had all of that throughout the entire thing. So it was a little bit shorter and didn't try to do as much per se, but I'm a little bit reserved enough about Empire of Silence that, like I said, I'm rating it 4.5 stars, just internally. This I'm saying is an easy 5 stars. So just the consistency of The Lesser Devil all throughout made me really enjoy it, so that wins my book of the month for August. Unless you want to say what I've read so far of this, but that doesn't count. So, moving on again, we come to my TBR list for September, and actually this is a little bit more packed than I anticipated, but I'm surprisingly thinking that I'll be able to get through pretty much everything that I plan to be able to get through. Now, first of all, I'm going to be finishing the Iliad, obviously. Like, that's just kind of a given, especially after I talked about how much I'm enjoying it. Now, the way that I'm reading this is actually a little bit different. Normally, I read books one at a time. I start one, finish it before I move on to the next book. What I'm doing with the Iliad is a little bit different in the sense that I'm reading one, maybe two books a day in the morning, and then any other reading that I do throughout the day goes to whatever else I'm reading. That's why I was able to get through a little bit of this and also be able to read all of The Lesser Devil in just a few days, was because I was alternating, wasn't just focusing on The Lesser Devil and feeling constrained to that, but I was also able to enjoy this. And I'm thinking I might try to do this type of pattern more often in the future, where I have one book that I read in the mornings and then another book that I read throughout the rest of the day or something like that, just to kind of balance things a little bit better and to make it feel like I'm going through a little bit more in terms of reading than maybe I am, just kind of a mental thing. But yeah, this is the Peter Green translation, and I think it's super readable for people who think that Robert Fagles, because even though Fagles is the academically acclaimed one and the one that I think most people know, Fagles, I've heard, actually goes tries to be a little bit too faithful to the actual structure, sentence wise and word wise, of the original Greek, so that it ends up feeling a little bit archaic. But I would say that that doesn't really hold true for Peter Green's translation. It feels a lot more normal, and although a couple sentences here and there might feel a little bit strange, and he spells all of the names in the Greek spelling as opposed to the common more Latinized spelling of the names. Uh, Besides those minor gripes, I find this very readable and I've been highly enjoying it. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to be reading one, maybe two books of the Iliad a day while I'm reading something else. So, what am I going to be starting immediately now, pretty much today after I'm done recording this video? Now, this, to me, almost feels a little bit strange to myself to be making this decision, but I'm actually going to be reading a couple books over the next week and a half or so because I'm sure that I'll be able to finish them in that time. I will be starting The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan, which is book 2 in the King Chronicles trilogy. I did not, because of my reading slump, there we go, for some reason English just disappeared from my brain. I didn't end up getting time or the chance to be able to read this in August, even though I suppose I could have actually read it instead of The Lesser Devil, but you know, who really cares at this point? It's just the fact that I was hoping to be able to get through one of these book a month over the remainder of the summer, at least prior to November, because of certain reasons that you'll figure out soon enough. I will be reading this alongside the Iliad for the next few days until I finish it, just so that I can be able to have more King Chronicles under my belt and be able to get it done. I was rather surprised by how well Red Pyramid held up, and not just held up, but how much it surprised me because I didn't remember that much. So I'm excited to be able to continue. And on that same vein, after I finish Throne of Fire, I plan to immediately go into Serpent's Shadow. Since each of these three books in the trilogy is shorter than the previous one in the trilogy, I think that I'll be able to get through these two books rather easily. I remember pretty much nothing about this last book, especially from when I read it back in like fifth grade or something. So I'm really excited to be able to go in and find out how this all finishes up. But then after that, I presume, or I'm predicting that I'll be able to get through both of these before the time allotted comes for the read along portion of Howling Dark by Christopher Rocchio, book 2 in the Sun Eater. So this one's a little bit bigger than the first one. It's a little bit of a thick boy. If I really wanted to guarantee that I'll be able to finish this whole thing in September, I could just start reading it now instead of going through King Chronicles, but I really want to be able to finish King Chronicles before the end of the year, so I'm doing those first. Besides, if these books take me a little bit longer than I anticipate, it's really not the end of the world. I'm just really excited to get into them either way. So these are what are going to take up pretty much the back half of the month. Well, when I say these, I mean this book. I'm not sure which edition I'm going to read out of. It really depends how I'm feeling. But finally, we actually have one more book to discuss here, and that is the fact that going 1 to 2 books of the Iliad a month, pretty much just one, but 1 to 2 books means that I'll be finishing this probably by the middle of the month. And if not, it'll be somewhere around 3/4 of the way through the month. So I'll have, a little bit of extra time that I could fill out just binge reading Howling Dark, but I decided that I want to be able to get to the Odyssey as soon as I possibly can. So, basically, as soon as I'm done with the Iliad, doing the whole 1 to 2 books of that a day, and then while I'm reading all my other stuff, when I'm done with the Iliad, I'm going to start the Odyssey and do that exact same thing. Read 1 to 2 books a day for the remainder of the month while I'm reading Howling Dark, and that's how the end of my September is going to go. So, yeah, like I said, pretty dense month for reading this month as opposed to August, which was rather light on it, all things considered. But I'm really excited to be able to get to all of these things. I feel like having like a 1 to 2 week space of time where I do no reading just makes it so that I can read for like 2 months after the fact with no problems, no feeling like I'm going into a slump, and just being able to read an absurd amount without any issues as well. And then, of course, I will go ahead and mention that I actually have a backlog of classics to catch up on at some point in time. This is just something that I'm going to mention here. I do still have A Tale of Two Cities that was supposed to be the other read-along book in August that I, because of the reading slump, didn't have time to be able to guarantee be able to get into. So if I have extra time, even despite this dense reading schedule at any point this autumn especially, I will go ahead and try to fit A Tale of Two Cities into my schedule, although that's not guaranteed. The Count of Monte Cristo is one that I also need to catch up on as well, but that's more like one that I'll have to dedicate a month to sometime next year if I get a chance. But yeah, so that is the end of this video. It was actually quite a bit longer than I anticipated it would be. I had a bit more to talk about, and I'm just excited to read again. So I hope that you guys didn't mind too much, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. With that all being said, stick around on the channel for Friday with my book haul, a little bit of a smaller one, and then next week when I'm reviewing Song of Susanna by Stephen King, Book 6 in the Dark Tower. I'm almost done with the Dark Tower coverage. I will be done after this month, so I hope you stick with me through all that. And as always, check out seasonalproductions.com for a backlog of all of my YouTube content and some of my writing stuff if you're interested in that. Other than that, I'll be back again this Friday with a book haul and next week for another episode of the Book Binge.